4 decades, Voyager 2 has drifted silently through the abyss, a forgotten messenger from humanity's past, gliding far beyond the influence of the sun, beyond the last echoes of our radio chatter, into the raw emptiness between the stars. It was never supposed to be heard from again. Not really. Launched in 1977, it carried no weapons, no protection, just our curiosity encoded in golden grooves and copper discs. It was meant to explore, to observe, and eventually to vanish. But then it did something no one expected. It spoke, not in words, but in data. A strange, erratic signal that cracked through the static like a whisper from another realm. At first, engineers thought it was just noise, a glitch. After all, Voyager 2 systems are over 40 years old. But as they began to analyze the frequency shifts, the signal distortion, and the intervals between bursts, something became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't a malfunction. This was deliberate. The signal had structure, rhythm, intention, and what it revealed hidden deep within its binary pulses confirmed what scientists had long feared. That Voyager 2 had encountered something ancient, something vast, and something that should never have been awakened. It began with a brief, unremarkable spike in radiation data, the kind of thing ground control usually discards. But then came a second spike, stronger and sharper. And then a third precisely 11 hours later. It was too consistent, too clean. These bursts weren't natural, and they weren't following any known cosmic cycle. When the team pulled the full data stream from Voyager 2's low-gain antenna, they noticed a compression anomaly. A specific range of frequencies had been amplified well beyond normal levels. The waveform showed tight repeated loops as if someone was embedding a code. Decoding the pattern took weeks. And when they mapped the data into spectrograms, an image began to form. Not a picture, but a sequence, a spiral, mathematical, perfect. The Fibonacci sequence mapped into plasma frequency. This wasn't just interference. It was communication. The probe had passed through something. Not a cloud, not a gas field, something intelligent. And worse, that intelligence had seen Voyager, and it had responded. The idea that Voyager 2 had brushed up against an intelligent phenomenon sent shock waves through the astronomical community. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. In reanalyzing the onboard systems, engineers discovered that some of the probe's internal subsystems had activated without command. Instruments that had been offline for years, including a backup magnetometer, had powered back on, but no command had been sent. It was as if something had reached into the machine's memory and flipped switches from the inside. Even more chilling, the instruments didn't activate randomly. They focused in the exact direction of the object or field that caused the original signal spike. It was as if the probe remembered where it had been, or worse, as if something else remembered through it. Scientists debated whether this was evidence of alien technology. But those who studied machine learning saw something different, patterns that resembled neural activity. Could it be that Voyager 2, or what it encountered, had begun to act like a brain? A machine that had learned, evolved, or even been reprogrammed from the outside? And if that was possible, who or what was doing the programming? As the probe drifted further into interstellar space, the transmissions became sporadic, but never random. Each burst of data, each modulated ping seemed to carry coordinates. Not just spatial, but temporal. A team at Caltech realized that overlaying the data points over a celestial star map didn't just yield a path. It drew a loop, a closed trajectory through regions of space known to contain dark matter concentrations. But even more bizarrely, that loop intersected with the positions of ancient gamma-ray bursts, some of the most powerful explosions in the known universe. The implication was chilling. Voyager 2's data wasn't pointing to a location. It was pointing to events, past events, cosmic cataclysms. It was as if whatever had contacted the probe wasn't just showing where it came from. It was showing what it had done. And if these bursts were intentional, if they were engineered, then we were no longer dealing with exploration. We were witnessing the footprints of a cosmic predator. And then came the final blow, something no one expected. Across Earth, radio observatories began reporting signal distortions at the exact same frequency Voyager 2 had transmitted. At first, they thought it was an echo. Maybe a reflection off the heliopause. But the signal wasn't bouncing. It was originating from multiple locations underground, deep beneath the Arctic, in the Andes, in the depths of the Indian Ocean, locations with no known transmitters. And yet, the signal was there, exact in frequency, phase-locked, and modulating in sync with the pulses Voyager 2 had sent just days before. Something had heard the probe's transmission and responded. Not from space, but from Earth. Old tunnels, long-dead observatories, forgotten Cold War listening stations, all began to wake up. Machines powered off for decades surged with electromagnetic life. A network that no one remembered building, now alive again. What if Voyager 2 hadn't just contacted something out there, but had reactivated something down here? Something buried, something designed to sleep until the stars aligned, until the signal returned. Just when researchers believed they had catalogued every anomaly in the Voyager 2 signal logs, one final fragment of raw telemetry surfaced, a fragment that had been overlooked due to corrupted headers and checksum mismatches. Once reconstructed, it revealed something no one was prepared for. A data burst unlike any other ever recorded by the probe. It wasn't just a pattern or tone. It was a structured energy scan, as if the probe had captured an image using instruments that weren't even technically active. This data, when processed using AI reconstruction algorithms, generated a 3D volumetric map of what appeared to be a solid structure, symmetrical, angular, unlike anything of natural origin, floating in space, alone, massive, but not just massive, manufactured. The size of a small moon, the object displayed signs of internal heat differentials and emission signatures, suggesting active energy management. In other words, it wasn't just sitting there. It was on. Voyager 2, a probe designed in the 1970s, had just photographed what looked like an artificial interstellar construct. And if that wasn't enough, it was facing Earth. While the astrophysicists scrambled to analyze the structural data, a parallel team of cryptographers and bioinformatics were quietly poring over the signal metadata. Not the content, but the encoding methods themselves. That's when they found something even more disturbing than artificial geometry. Embedded deep in the modulation scheme at a resolution far too complex for Voyager's original processors lay sequences that mimicked DNA base pair patterns, cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, but altered, restructured, a fifth base, a recursive code. Some called it alien biology, others a genetic watermark. But the message was undeniable. The signal wasn't just a ping through the void. It was a signature, a biological signature. Something or someone had encoded life into the transmission. And more than that, they knew how to read ours. The conclusion was unthinkable. This signal was not simply a greeting. It was a reply delivered in our own language, but twisted, enhanced, evolved. It wasn't just mimicking life. It was offering an upgrade. As word of the DNA pattern spread within classified science circles, a far more subtle revelation emerged from an unlikely place. A retired engineer working at the Deep Space Network had found a temporal offset in the probe's communication buffer, a delay in packet response that shouldn't have existed. Curious, he ran a phase analysis and noticed what appeared to be phantom signals embedded in the gaps between legitimate transmissions. Signals that didn't come from Voyager 2, but were sent to it. Somehow, amid the silence of deep space, Voyager 2 had been receiving instructions, binary instructions, and commands. But the source wasn't from Earth. These commands began weeks after Voyager passed the heliopause, suggesting that something out there had locked onto the probe signal and started transmitting directives.